My name is Ridwan. I'm 26 years old, from Jember, East Java. Like many young men in my village, I dreamed of helping my family escape poverty. When I was offered a chance to work in Australia, on a legal plantation job with decent pay, it felt like Allah had opened a door. I hugged my mother tightly at Janda Airport. She held my hand and whispered, "Take care of your prayers, son. No matter where you are, Allah sees you." My father nodded silently, his eyes red but proud. I boarded that flight with a heart full of hope. The agent who arranged everything, Mr. Hadi, sounded legitimate. He had a Jakarta accent, dressed sharp, and showed me documents that looked official. He told me I only needed to pay half now, and the rest could be deducted from my future wages. "It's legal, trust me. We're like a family," he said with a smile. But the moment I stepped off the plane in Melbourne, that illusion shattered. I stood at the arrivals gate for hours. No one held a sign with my name. I walked back and forth, searching. I called Mr. Hadi. The number was off. WhatsApp was gone. All contact vanished like smoke in the wind. Panic settled in. I was truly alone. I had no real plan. I had a backpack with a few clothes, my Indonesian ID card, and just enough cash to maybe survive for a couple of days. That night, I sat on a bench near Southern Cross Station. It was freezing. I tried to stay awake, afraid someone might steal what little I had. I ate a discounted sandwich from a 24-hour convenience store and whispered, "Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is enough for me and the best disposer of affairs." I spent 3 nights like that, cold, tired, ashamed. I spoke broken English to passers-by, asking about shelters or jobs. Most smiled awkwardly and walked away. The city was bright, but I felt like I was sinking into darkness. On the 4th day, I felt weak. My head burned with fever, and my legs trembled. I walked aimlessly through alleyways until I collapsed in front of a small flower shop. That's when I met her, Sophia. When I opened my eyes, I was under a thick blanket in a warm room. The ceiling had soft yellow lights. Across the room, a woman with wavy brown hair and an oversized gray sweater sat reading something. She looked up, startled but calm. "You're awake," she said. I sat up quickly, embarrassed. "Sorry, where am I?" "You fainted outside my shop. I couldn't just leave you there." I blinked, trying to recall everything. I don't have money. I wasn't trying to." She raised her hand gently. "Relax. You're safe here." Her name was Sophia. She didn't ask many questions. She offered me tea and told me to rest. That night, I slept on a real mattress again for the first time in days. Before sleeping, I whispered the evening prayer under my breath and thanked Allah for sending me help when I had none. The next morning, I woke up in a modest room with wooden bookshelves, indoor plants near the window, and a calm, cozy feeling. There was a small Qur'an translation on the side table. That surprised me. After breakfast, eggs and toast, Sophia sat across from me at the table. "So," she said, "what happened to you?" I tried to explain, mixing English with Baisa. I told her about Mr. Hadi, the fake job, and how I'd been stranded. She listened quietly, nodding. "I'm not rich," she said, "but I have a little flower shop, and I could use help. If you want, you can stay here for a bit and help me out." I looked at her, confused. "Why help me?" She shrugged. "Because I've been lost before too. Sometimes kindness is the only thing that brings people back." I didn't know what to say. Her kindness was so unexpected. And yet a small voice in my heart told me, this is Allah's qadr. Accept it, but don't forget your purpose. Over the next few days, I began helping at her flower shop. I swept the floor, watered the plants, and carried orders. It wasn't much, but it gave me something to do and a sense of worth again. Sophia was different from anyone I had known. She didn't mock my broken English. She laughed easily, but there was sadness behind her eyes. Once, while rearranging dried lavender, she mentioned she used to live overseas and was trying to build a life again. That was all. In the evenings, we'd eat dinner, usually something simple like pasta or soup, and sometimes she would ask about Indonesia. I told her about village life, my mother's cooking, and how the mosque in our neighborhood echoed with adhan 5 times a day. She listened with genuine interest. One night, I saw her glancing at the Quran translation in the living room. I asked, "Do you read that?" "Sometimes," she said. "I got it when I was traveling through Malaysia a few years ago. I found something calming about the verses, even if I didn't understand everything." I nodded. "It is calming. It's not just words. It's guidance." She looked at me thoughtfully. "Maybe you could read it with me sometime?" That caught me off guard. "Sure, if you want." From that night onward, something began to shift. We'd read short verses, and I'd explain what I could. She asked questions about Allah, about prayer, about why Muslims fast. Her curiosity was sincere. But something else was stirring beneath the surface. She still avoided certain questions. She changed the topic when I asked about her family. And though she was kind, there was a wall around her past. Still, I told myself, Allah brought me here for a reason. And maybe He brought her to me too. Days passed. Life started to settle into a quiet rhythm. I worked mornings in Sophia's flower shop, helping with orders, deliveries, and plant care. In the evenings, I worked part-time at a nearby cafe that one of Sophia's friends owned. It wasn't glamorous, but I was earning enough to buy basic food and send a few dollars home through a friend's help. At night, I would sit by the window in my room, reading from the Quran translation I borrowed from Sophia's shelf. Sometimes, I'd write letters I couldn't send to my mother. Other times, Sophia would sit across from me and ask, "Can you read something for me today?" Her interest in the Quran was no longer casual. One evening I recited, "Verily, with hardship comes ease." Surah Al-Inshirah 94:6. She repeated the words slowly. "That sounds like something I've always known. But I've never heard it spoken like that." I smiled. That's how the Quran feels. It speaks to your soul, not just your ears. But even as peace began to return to my life, I noticed shadows gathering again. Sophia was kind, generous, patient. But she was also hiding something. Some nights, she would take strange calls in another language, not English. When I entered the kitchen unexpectedly, she would quickly close her laptop. Her smile would turn stiff. I didn't want to judge her, but something inside me stirred with unease. One night, I came home early from the cafe. I heard her laughing in the kitchen, talking to someone over video chat. The voice was cheerful, but the language was unfamiliar. I stood at the doorway. She didn't notice me. When she saw me, her expression changed instantly. She ended the call, shut the laptop, and tried to smile. "You're home early," she said, brushing her hair back. I nodded. Shift was cut short. We didn't talk more about it. The next few days, my anxiety grew. I began to wonder, who is Sophia really? Why did she help me? Was I just another part of something I didn't understand? Then one afternoon at the cafe, I met Jamal. A young man from Medan, Indonesia, with a strong accent and open demeanor. He worked in the kitchen. When he found out I was from East Java, his face lit up. "You're Ridwan, right? The guy who got scammed by that Jakarta agent?" I froze. "How do you know?" He looked around, then leaned closer. "News spreads fast, brother. Especially among those of us who came here illegally. I almost got trapped too." I was silent. "Where do you live now?" he asked. "At a friend's house. A local woman," I said carefully. He narrowed his eyes. "Be careful. Some locals are part of the same networks. Especially if they know too much or seem too perfect." I didn't answer. But my heart pounded. That night I couldn't sleep. Was Sophia involved in something darker? Was I living in a trap disguised as kindness? I prayed long and hard that night, Salat al-Istikhara, asking Allah for guidance. The next day, I gathered my courage. Sophia and I sat in the backyard. She was watering the plants when I said softly, "Can I ask you something?" She turned to me. "Of course. Do you know people who work in international labor recruitment?" She froze. The hose slipped from her hand. The water kept pouring onto the soil. "Why are you asking that?" she asked, her voice suddenly quiet. I looked down. "Someone told me there are people here who pretend to help. But they're part of a scam." Silence. "You think I'm one of them?" she whispered. I didn't reply. But my silence said enough. Sophia sat down slowly on the porch step, staring at the floor. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "I was once close to someone in that world. Not by choice. My father, he ran one of those networks. His name is Richard." My breath stopped. She went on. "When I found out the truth, what he was doing, how many lives he destroyed, I ran away. I changed cities, changed my name. I cut off contact." My throat tightened. "Then, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed. And because I didn't want to lose your trust." I sat there stunned. "I helped you," she said, her voice cracking, "because I know what it's like to be lost. And because I couldn't let someone else become my father's next victim." For the first time, I saw tears in her eyes. I didn't know what to say. I got up and walked inside. That night, I sat in my room, thinking of all the kindness she had shown. Was it fake? Or was it redemption? The next day, I received a message from an old village friend. "Ridwan, I found out the boss behind the scam is now working in Melbourne under a new name. Be careful. His real name is Richard Hutton." I searched online. An article from 2021 popped up. There it was, Richard Hutton, connected to labor scams in Southeast Asia. And under, known associates, Sarah Sophia Hutton. Her real name. My knees went weak. I opened the study next to the living room and found a stack of documents. Passports. Fake IDs. One had my name, Ahmad Ridwan, but wrong address, wrong age. One page listed a sponsor I'd never heard of. It was terrifying. Was Sophia trying to sell me into something? As I stood there shaking, Sophia entered. Her eyes widened. "Ridwan. I can explain." I held up the fake passport. "What is this? What are you doing with my identity?" She sat down slowly, visibly broken. "I made that, to protect you. My father's people found out you escaped their network. They were going to take you. I created a new identity so you could legally disappear from their radar." I stared at her. "You forged documents to save me?" She nodded. "I went to a friend in immigration. Someone I trust. I didn't know how to tell you without making it worse. I didn't know what to believe." That night, a message came from Jamal. "They're looking for someone from Java. I think they know your name. Be careful." I showed it to Sophia. Her face turned white. "We have to leave. Tonight." I hesitated. "I've been running too long. I can't run forever." Sophia looked at me, her voice breaking. "Then let me stand beside you." We left that night, no plan, just faith. And for the first time, I didn't feel completely alone. We walked quickly through the empty Melbourne streets, the cold wind slicing across our faces. I carried my small backpack with a few clothes, my prayer beads wrapped tightly around my fingers. Sophia kept glancing back, her steps hurried but sure. Neither of us spoke. There were no words left, only urgency and the echo of heavy truth between us. "We're going to my friend's place," she finally said in a low voice. "She's one of the only people I trust." Her friend was a former immigration officer, now a whistleblower. Her name was May. She lived in an old apartment building on the edge of the city. The hallway smelled of damp paper and silence. Sophia rang the bell for Unit 302. After a few seconds, the door opened, revealing a stern-faced woman with sharp eyes and graying hair tied in a bun. "You came," May said, stepping aside. "Get in. Quickly." The apartment was small but neat. Books and hard drives lined one wall. A laptop sat open on the dining table, lines of code running across the screen. "This is Ridwan," Sophia said. "He's the reason I came to you." May gave me a nod. "You're one of Richard's victims?" I nodded silently. May turned to her computer. "I've been gathering data on their operations for months. Documents, bank transfers, fake visa records. If I can get this to the right media and human rights groups, we might actually shut them down." Sophia helped her upload files, while I sat in a corner, quietly making dua. I asked Allah for safety, for justice, and for the strength to keep going. "Ya Allah, if this trial is from you, then let me rise through it. And if it is a trap, save me." Suddenly my phone rang. A private number. I hesitated, then answered. A deep voice greeted me, cold and familiar. "Long time no see, Ridwan." My chest tightened. "You think you can hide forever? We know who you're with. She's not as clean as you think." I froze. "We'll find you. And this time, no one will save you." The line went dead. My hands trembled. "They know we're here." Sophia's face turned pale. May began typing furiously. "I can send everything now. But you two need to move. We can go to the police," I suggested. May shook her head. "They have insiders everywhere. Even in immigration. If they find you before the media breaks this story, they'll bury you." She handed us a brown envelope. "Take this. If I get arrested or silenced, take this to the community radio station near Brunswick. They work with migrant families. They'll know what to do." We thanked her and left the apartment into the darkness. But danger followed us. In a narrow alley near the station, I heard rapid footsteps behind us. Then shouting. Flashlights cutting through the shadows. "They're here!" Sophia cried. We ran. Boots pounded the pavement behind us. We ducked through side streets, jumped over an old metal fence, and crashed into a desolate park. I scraped my arm, but we kept moving. Behind a thick bush, we crouched, trying not to breathe too loud. The flashlight beams passed by, just a few meters away. Sophia squeezed my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. I whispered, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." There is no power and no strength except through Allah. After what felt like hours, the footsteps faded. We didn't move until we were sure the area was clear. From there, we made it to a 24-hour bus stop and took a late-night ride to a safe house owned by a Vietnamese widow named Madame Thuy, a friend of May's. She welcomed us with hot tea and thick blankets. Her words were simple. "You are safe now. Sleep." That night, I prayed long and hard. Ya Allah, make truth shine and falsehood disappear. As I laid my head down beside Sophia on separate sleeping mats, I noticed her holding the same Qur'an translation she used to glance at before. "Do you still read it?" I asked. She nodded, eyes glistening. "More than ever." We didn't say more. 3 days later, we received news that made our hearts leap. May had successfully leaked the data. Major news outlets picked up the story. The headlines were everywhere. International labor scam network exposed. Daughter of notorious agent helps victim uncover human trafficking ring. Faces were blurred, but names were real. My name. Sophia's name. Richard's name. We turned on the television. There it was, images of victims, hidden camera footage of fake interviews, and forged documents. My forged passport was among them, now used as evidence against the network. But good news often comes with bitter edges. A day later, we heard that Richard had been arrested. But he had made bail. And then he disappeared. I looked at Sophia. "He's still out there." She nodded. "But now he's running." We were no longer prey. We were witnesses. I found work through an NGO that assisted migrant workers. A small textile factory run by the Indonesian Muslim community gave me a job. It didn't pay much, but it was honest. I even found a masjid nearby where I prayed Fajr and Maghrib daily. My status was being processed. I would soon become a legal resident. At home, Sophia was quieter than usual. One evening I came back from the masjid to find her crying quietly on the balcony. I sat beside her. "What's wrong?" She wiped her tears. I don't know who I am anymore." "You're someone who risked everything to help others," I said. She looked at me. "But I lied. I forged. I ran away. I hid behind fake names. What if I'm still just like him?" I paused. "Do you know what makes a person righteous in Islam?" I asked. "Not perfection. Not a flawless past. It's tawbah, sincere repentance. It's turning back to Allah and saying, 'I was wrong, and I want to return.'" She looked at me, eyes trembling. "Do you think Allah could forgive someone like me?" "Of course," I replied. "He says in the Qur'an, 'O my servants who have transgressed against themselves, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins.'" Surah Az-Zumar 39:53. We sat in silence. Then, for the first time, Sophia whispered, "I want to believe in him. In your God. But I don't know how." I turned to her, heart pounding. "You start with the truth in your heart. And when you're ready, you testify with your tongue." The evening air was gentle on the balcony, yet something sacred stirred between us. Sophia's eyes shimmered in the dim light, filled not just with tears but with a yearning I had seen in very few people. She had spent years running, from her family, from her past, from herself. But now, it seemed, she had found something worth running toward. "I want to believe," she whispered again. "But I don't know everything. What if I do it wrong?" "You don't need to know everything," I said gently. "Iman begins with the heart. It grows with sincerity, not with perfection." She looked at me. "What do I have to say?" I sat up, facing her. "The Shahida. The testimony of faith." I spoke slowly, letting each word rest in the air between us. "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, then opened them and repeated the words, softly, reverently. And in that moment, Sophia ceased to be the woman with a past and became the woman with a new beginning. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. "Welcome, sister," I said, my voice trembling. "You are now among those who have returned to their Creator with a clean heart." She smiled through the tears. "I don't even know what to feel. But something inside feels lighter. Like I finally stopped pretending." I nodded. "That's what submission feels like. Not slavery. But freedom." Over the next few days, Sophia, now Sophia, the name she chose for herself, began to learn. She started with the basics: how to perform wudu, how to offer salah. I taught her little by little, with as much patience as I could, knowing that each step was a victory over 1,000 regrets. She asked many questions. Sometimes about the prayers, sometimes about the Prophet Muhammad, but most often about forgiveness. "Does Islam really erase everything I did before?" she asked one night. I nodded. "Yes. The Prophet said Islam wipes away what came before it. And every sincere repentance is a fresh page. Your book is clean now, Sophia." That name suited her. Sophia, pure, chosen, sincere. She began fasting every Monday and Thursday with me. She stopped swearing, started waking up for far, and even began reading the Qur'an with translation every evening. But peace never lasts long in this world. One morning, the news came through the NGO network. Richard Hutton had resurfaced, and this time, with a vengeance. His network, weakened but not dead, had traced some of the sources who leaked documents. May had gone silent. The station that once broadcast our documents reported a break-in. And then, a message arrived at Sophia's phone, a single sentence, unsigned. "We know who you are, Sarah." Her face turned white when she read it. "We have to disappear again," she said, voice trembling. But I shook my head. "No. We've run enough. It's time we face them. But this time, with truth." We turned to the masjid's leadership for help. The Imam, a kind man from Lebanon named Sheikh Marwan, heard our story quietly. When we finished, he said, "We will protect you. But we must also act. We cannot let these criminals hide in the shadows." He arranged for us to meet with a Muslim lawyer who worked with asylum seekers and victims of trafficking. She agreed to represent us pro bono. "This is a righteous case," she said. "We'll take it all the way to the federal court if we must." Sophia and I spent the next week compiling everything, every fake document, every message, every detail of the operations we had witnessed. In the meantime, we moved into a new safe house provided by a Muslim charity. The brothers and sisters who helped us were kind, non-judgmental, and full of du'as. It amazed Sophia how easily they accepted her, even knowing who she used to be. "It's like they don't care about my past," she said in wonder. I smiled. "That's what Islam teaches. Judge people by their repentance, not their mistakes." One evening, Sophia found a group of sisters at the masjid preparing care packages for new migrants. She joined them. When she returned, her face was radiant. "I never knew giving could feel this good," she said. "That's the barakah of serving others," I said. "It softens the heart." That night, after Isha, we sat outside again under the stars. "You know," she said, "I used to think love was something only broken people chased. Like me. I thought no one could ever love me sincerely, especially after knowing my family." I looked at her. "I don't think anyone comes to love with a perfect past. What matters is how they walk with you now. And where they're going." She looked away shyly. "Do you ever think about us? About a future?" My heart skipped. I had wondered the same question 100 times. "I do," I said honestly. "But not in the way people rush into things. I want whatever happens to be for the sake of Allah. And I want your deen to grow first, without my shadow clouding it." She smiled. "That's the first time anyone's ever put my soul before their feelings." I laughed softly. "Welcome to the Ummah." The next morning, we received a call from the lawyer. "The court has granted a protective order. Your case is moving forward. But I have to warn you, Richard's legal team is powerful. They're going to try to discredit both of you." Sophia was quiet for a moment. "Let them try. The only one whose judgment matters is already aware of the truth." As we hung up, I realized that the woman sitting beside me wasn't the same Sophia who had once whispered doubts and fears. She was Sophia now, firm, faithful, and fearless. And maybe, just maybe, the test wasn't meant to break us. It was meant to bring us here. The courtroom was colder than we imagined, not in temperature, but in spirit. Cameras clicked as we walked in, surrounded by journalists, NGO workers, and a few familiar faces from the masjid. Sophia stood tall, her hijab wrapped neatly around her head, her expression calm but determined. This was the day she would testify, not just against her father, but against the darkness that had hunted her past and tried to destroy my future. I whispered to her before the trial began. "Have sabr, and remember Allah is always with the truthful." She nodded. "Whatever happens, I'm not afraid anymore. I know who I am now." The prosecutor introduced Sophia as a reformed witness and key whistleblower. He detailed the false passport ring, the forged documents, and the labor trafficking that had targeted hundreds of migrants across Southeast Asia and Australia. Richard Hutton sat across the room. Gray-haired, expressionless, dressed in a suit that didn't quite hide his arrogance. For years, his network had exploited the poor and desperate. But today, his daughter, his former accomplice, was the one bringing his crimes to light. When Sophia was called to the stand, the room grew still. She took her oath. And then, with poise and conviction, she began. "My name was Sarah Hutton. I was raised in privilege, blind to the suffering my family's wealth caused. I lived in denial. Until one day, I found out the truth. I saw the faces of the people we hurt. I saw Riwin." She paused, looking at me briefly. "He was meant to be just another victim. But instead, he became a mirror. A mirror showing me who I truly was. And who I wanted to become." She spoke of how we met. How I had no one and she took me in, not out of guilt at first, but because she saw in me something she had lost: sincerity, dignity, and hope. When I began learning about Islam, she continued, I didn't expect to find myself. But it gave me what I had been missing all my life: truth, justice, and the mercy of a Creator who doesn't judge you by your past if you sincerely return to Him. The judge listened quietly. The defense team, however, tried to twist her words. You only converted to Islam to protect yourself, isn't that right? One lawyer barked. Sophia didn't flinch. No. I converted because Islam is the first thing in my life that didn't demand lies. I embraced it for peace, not for protection. They tried to discredit her with old records, past bank transfers, even travel logs. But she answered each accusation with calm clarity. By the time her testimony ended, the mood in the courtroom had shifted. The weight of truth had settled in. Richard was no longer the powerful businessman. He was a fugitive whose sins had finally caught up. A week later, the court issued its ruling. Richard Hutton was found guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and human trafficking. His properties were seized. His network was dismantled. It didn't erase the damage done. But it was justice. And sometimes, that's enough to begin healing. We returned to our small rented apartment after the ruling. As the sun set over Melbourne, the city felt different. Not because it had changed, but because we had. That evening, Sophia prepared a simple meal, rice with stir-fried vegetables. We sat on the carpet, eating from the same plate, as we often did now. A Qur'an rested nearby, its pages marked with bookmarks and notes in her handwriting. After dinner, she handed me a letter. I opened it and read, Dear Ridwan, you once told me that home is not a place, but a heart that dares to forgive. I spent my life trying to run away from my father, from my guilt, from who I was. But through you, I found something stronger than escape. I found return. I found Allah. And I found love. Not the kind from stories, but the kind that holds your hand through fire and prayer. If you'll have me, I'd like to walk this path with you. Sophia. I looked up. She was already smiling, her eyes glistening. I was hoping you'd read that before far. She teased. I laughed. I don't need to wait that long. The next day, we visited Sheikh Marwan. He looked at us with warmth. So, you're ready to begin a new chapter together? We nodded. The nikah was simple. Just a few friends, a couple of dates, and heartfelt du'as. No fancy halls or elaborate ceremonies. Just sincerity. And before Allah, we became husband and wife. Weeks turned into months. Life was modest but full of barakah. I continued working at the textile factory, and Sophia joined a Muslim women's organization that supported migrant victims. She now spent her days helping others like herself, women who had been broken by the world but were rebuilding themselves with the help of Deen. She told her story on Islamic podcasts and community gatherings, not for fame, but for change. She wanted to be a voice for those who had none. One evening, as we sat under the stars again, I asked her, Do you still think about Indonesia? She smiled. Every day. I still dream of the village you told me about, with the sound of chickens in the morning, and the adhan echoing through the hills. Maybe we can go one day, I said. Start something small. A school. A garden. A life. She nodded. Yes. I'd like that. A place where no one is invisible again. We sat in silence, letting the breeze pass over us. I looked up at the sky. I came here with a dream to change my family's life. I didn't know I'd lose everything first. But in losing what I thought I needed, I found what Allah knew I truly needed. Sophia placed her head on my shoulder. And I found the path I was always meant to walk. Under the southern sky, where I once felt lost and alone, I found a sister in faith, a partner in life, and a reason to keep walking. Not toward a place, but toward peace. And in that, I finally understood what home really means.